Everyone likes to talk about themselves every once in a while, but what is it that compels some people to make it their entire career?
I think that I may be the voice of my generation, or at least a voice of a generation.
Oversharing has become a particular topic of conversation in our current era thanks to so many people being so open about so much of their lives on apps like TikTok. But the thrill of, and possible monetary gain from, oversharing about your life goes way back. So to get a better understanding of this phenomenon, let's use some of our favorite oversharing writers from movies and TV to unpack the reasons why people tend to overshare, how some turned it into an entire career, from books to blogs to social media, and all of the downsides that people often don't think about until it's too late.
That's the point. You're no one until you're talked about.
There are lots of characters and people in real life who overshare, but only some choose to put it in print to share with an even wider audience. So what are the things that drive that need to be so open about things that most of us would rather hide? Most of these people are naturally open to begin with. They've never necessarily felt the need to filter their thoughts.
I'm either going to have to make an emergency visit to my gynecologist, or one of you is going to have to give me a hand.
Being so open can be freeing in a way, allowing you to feel like you're releasing your burdens by sharing them with others. There's also, of course, the more ego-focused aspect of the sharing as well. Getting to feel like you're interesting to others and fashioning yourself as the main character and the focal point of all of that outside interest.
I wrote my first post about me. Lonely boy. The outsider, the underdog. I might have been a joke, but at least people were talking about me.
Some studies have found that oversharing can actually be hardwired in our brains. Sharing things about ourselves can ding the reward centers in our brains, which can lead to a continuous cycle of wanting to share more, to keep feeling that positive feeling. One study noted, just as monkeys are willing to forego juice rewards to view dominant group mates, and college students are willing to give up money to view attractive members of the opposite sex, our participants were willing to forego money to think and talk about themselves. Participants were willing to forego money to introspect about the self, and even more money when they were able to disclose the results of such introspection to another person.
Am I seriously the only one of us who prides herself on being a truly authentic person? This is tripping me out.
There's also the value of the connection that sharing things about yourself can bring. It can be great to share something you feel might be weird about yourself, only to find people who also have a similar experience and no longer feel so alone. And for the readers, oftentimes not having shared experiences is what makes this kind of writing so interesting. It allows them to live vicariously through these writers and experience things they might not ever have in real life, and might not have even ever realized was a possibility otherwise. But how and why did this blossom into a form of a career? And how did that then develop into our current world where everyone seems to be oversharing for a living, even if they aren't getting paid for it? Also, does it really count as oversharing if people want to hear it? While movies and shows can be a great escape from our world, just like with so many of our favorite oversharing writers' stories, what's really important is how it all connects to real truths. That's why we know that, just like we love digging in and analyzing media, it's also important to be able to look at the news we read with that same analytical lens, both so that we can be aware of the bias in the headlines, and also so that we can develop a deeper understanding of what's going on. That's why we appreciate this video's sponsor, Ground News, so much. Ground News pulls together thousands of articles from across a range of topics every day, allowing you to get a more full understanding of what's going on beyond the headlines. The recent Louvre heist was like something straight out of a movie, and the headlines it garnered spun off in multiple directions. Ground News shows us info for about 33 sources, 10 of which lean left, 3 lean right, and 9 are in the center, showing that the bias distribution leans more towards the center and the left. Where you're getting your news can have a major impact on your perspective of a story. For example, on the left, we can see a focus on the larger historical context of the artifacts. Like with hyperallergics, the Louvre heist was a colonial wake-up call, while headlines on the right focus more on the true crime aspect. Like Fox News' brazen Louvre robbery crew may have been hired by collector, prosecutor says. Ground News provides you an easy and efficient way to turn your analytical lens on the most important stories of the day. In addition to the source breakdowns, you can also see key information about who owns and funds those sources, to get an idea of what might be behind any bias. They also provide a rating of the outlet's factuality based on their reporting practices. This all makes it simple to begin digging into the meat of stories without feeling overwhelmed. Here at The Take, we found Ground News to be really useful both for coming across topics for videos that are making headlines, and also making it so much easier for us to get information about these events from multiple angles, to make sure that we're getting the full picture so that we can really dig in with our analysis. Whether you're doing your own research or just trying to keep up with the news, we think you'll find Ground News to be super helpful in your day-to-day life too. To get access to all of this and more for only $5 a month, less than one bucket of popcorn at the theater, subscribe to Ground News using this QR code or our link, groundnews.com/take, or by clicking our link in the description. You'll get 40% off the Vantage plan, where you'll enjoy unlimited access to worldwide coverage. It's more important than ever to stay informed. So don't miss this opportunity to make sure that you always have the full picture on every story, on screen and off. Some studies have found that our interest in ourselves can affect our life choices in major ways. Not just in choosing things that we enjoy, but in choosing things that remind us of us. From choosing professions that sound kind of like our names, to living in cities that contain numbers we associate with ourselves and beyond. Given that, and the neural reward ping that can come from sharing about oneself, it's no surprise then that many oversharers have found ways to make sharing about themselves their entire jobs. We, as of recent decades in particular, might associate oversharing with reality TV, but that's different from the oversharing writer, because on a reality show, there's a whole production team helping to create narratives and spin stories. But for the writer, they are in control of how much they're choosing to put out there and how it's framed. So, of course, they also don't have any control over how it's received once it reaches an audience. Semi or fully autobiographical works have been around forever, with people garnering attention for telling, often embellished tales of their own scandalous deeds. But in the 20th century, it became a particularly radical literary pursuit for women who were carving out their own place in the canon, and wanted to do so in a way that didn't try to hide all of the facets of their reality, but instead lean into them. Writer Joan Didion, for example, shot to fame through her journalism, but also developed a devoted audience through her confessional, introspective essays about her own life, from the minutiae of her packing list to her marriage and beyond. This kind of writing by women, shining a spotlight on the long hidden or ignored parts of their own lives, from the mundane to the distressing to the comical, was revolutionary. But while that kind of openness was applauded when it came through a male lens, for women it was often seen in a more negative light, as a sign of being self-centered or myopic. That, however, never stopped these writers from continuing to write, or from finding an audience. So many of the most iconic oversharing writer characters on screen feel so real because they are based on real-life writers, who themselves wanted to open up about their own lives and thoughts. Nora Ephron included many aspects from her real life in her work, especially in her novel Heartburn, which she later turned into a screenplay. The story was based on her real-life relationship with journalist Carl Bernstein, and she didn't pull any punches when it came to being open about their problems.
You couldn't even pay cash. Like a normal philanderer, you charged everything. I mean, look at this flowers. Look at all these flowers that you bought her!
Sex and the City's Carrie Bradshaw, who spends most of the show writing sex advice columns for a newspaper, was based on writer Candace Bunchell's own real-world column for the New York Observer. Candace, like Carrie, shared a lot about her own life in her column, to the point that she began using the pseudonym Carrie just in case her parents came across her writing. Carrie was constantly sharing not only about her own love life, but also those of her friends and anyone else she happened to come across. Her willingness to be so open about the parts of love and relationships that weren't often talked about openly was what drew people in, both to her column on the show and to Sex and the City itself.
Is cheating like the proverbial tree in the forest? That it doesn't exist if there's no one around to catch you? In a gravity-free world of anything goes, what constitutes cheating?
Though, as we'll discuss in a moment, this didn't come without its own share of issues. Carrie and other writers like her set the scene for those who would come after them as the internet age dawned. The bloggers. As making it as a writer in the traditional sense became more and more difficult, many began turning to blogs as a way to share their writing with the world. And for many, this meant sharing a lot about their personal lives.
I'm planning to write an article that exposes all of my vulnerabilities to the entire internet.
Overshare was even Webster's New World Dictionary's Word of the Year in 2008, and the Chambers Dictionary's Word of the Year in 2014. This also coincided with a new wave of characters on screen who were not afraid to be open and raw about every aspect of their lives. Again, very often written as self-insert characters by real-life oversharing writers.
If that's the way you process the world, is to make creative content based on your personal life, then you have to be really careful.
These kinds of characters are so fascinating because they're so unafraid to open up about the darker and even supremely annoying parts of themselves that the rest of us want to pretend we don't have.
I have work, and then I have a dinner thing, and then I am busy trying to become who I am.
But this is also what makes them, like their real-life counterparts, so polarizing. Their openness forces their audience to confront parts of themselves that they might prefer to ignore.
Don't even worry about it. Everyone was so drunk, I bet no one even remembers what you said.
I remember. I blogged the whole thing.
That sense of connection and getting a peek into another world has only increased as we've all become more connected by social media. On the one hand, this continues to have those positive effects of allowing people to find others who have shared experiences, and to learn about new ones they might not have known about otherwise. On the other hand, the existing feeling of reward for sharing, combined with the algorithms designed specifically to actually reward people who are willing to share it all, has led to an explosion of oversharing online. Some people have lost their jobs because they refuse not to post their entire life online. But many grab eyes via story times, which at their core are essentially just video versions of the confessional blogs of yore. But because the algorithms also seem to favor negativity, it can often be difficult to tell if these people's lives are actually like this, or if they're just leaning into deliberate rage bait to increase their income.
Stop showing me your loser husband. Stop showing me your loser husband.
And this is where we get into the much less fun sides of sharing everything with everyone. Openness can lead to a lot of positives, but there are also a number of downsides that can arise that the oversharer might not even realize are such a big problem until it's too late. There's that addictive nature of the attention that comes with oversharing, which can lead to them feeling compelled to share more and more, well beyond what they had ever initially intended. This can lead to sharing about yourself becoming almost a compulsion, drowning out your ability to focus on anyone but yourself.
It can be pretty hard to have observations about other people when you're only thinking about yourself. I would know.
The combination of that desire to share with an impulsive nature can also be particularly troubling, as once things are out in the open, you can't unshare them. Everyone knowing so much about you, or being able to find out so much about you so easily, can also tip the scales in an awkward way in your everyday life, having to wonder just how much every new person you meet knows about you, and how much that's created preconceived notions about you in their heads that will be hard to shake, while you don't know anything about them. The part of the equation that oversharers most often forget isn't actually about them at all, however.
Wait, is this play about us?
Oversharers usually aren't just sharing stories solely about themselves, but ones that include other people who likely were not asked if they wanted all of that information out there.
Not fair.
It's my life, Rory. I went to all this effort for many, many years, making sure that people only knew what I wanted them to know, and now you're gonna lay it all out in a book?
Gossip Girl's Dan Humphrey is an interesting version of the trope because he wasn't really an oversharing writer until the writers decided they wanted to subvert expectations many seasons in. For most of the show, even Dan didn't know that he was sharing all of that information about himself and his friends and family's lives. But within the canon of the show, he was indeed putting both himself and everyone else he knew on blast constantly, just for the thrill of the attention and to seek out revenge.
Dan, I cannot believe you were the one responsible for all of this poison. The damage you've done to your friends, to your family, to your own sister.
The show just kind of hand waves away the issues at the end so that it doesn't have to deal with the real ramifications of what it would have meant for him to be Gossip Girl all along. But we can kind of see a similar pattern play out in real life, with people oversharing to a degree that blows up their and other people's lives, only for them to turn that around and profit off of the fallout as well. So maybe Dan was on to something. When asked if she ever regretted sharing so much of her real life in her writing, Samantha Irby told the LA Times, "I never regret it because part of why I keep doing this is because I get feedback from people that's like, that thing you wrote really helped me. If my talking about getting my heart hit by a bus is helpful, then I'm cool with it." But any of the, like, I fell out of this or I pooped on that, no regrets. No regrets. At the end of the day, it's only really oversharing if it's more than you wanted to share, and if there's no audience that wants to hear it. No matter how our mediums of communication continue to evolve, there will continue to be people who want to open up about everything, and people who can't wait to hear more. If you're aware of all of the downsides and making sure not to drag anyone into it that didn't ask for it, it's really just sharing, which can be a great thing. That's The Take. Click here to watch the video we think you'll love, or here to check out a whole playlist of awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications.